Okay. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Ilana Marin, the board chair of American Romanian Cultural Society. And I am very pleased to introduce Dr. Diana Barbu. Together with us is Otilia Baraboi, the executive director of ARCS. And I am, again, oh, okay, on Facebook now. And we together co-founded ARCS in 2013. And 2 years later, we decided to start designing language programs, Romanian language classes that have proved to be extremely successful. And 1 year later, Elisabeta Iliescu joined our group. She's a specialist in early education. So please do check our education programs on ARC's website for more information as well as for updates. We also have an education Facebook page, and you'll see the intense activity. We do not teach only Romanian language classes, but also Romanian culture. And that helps the second generation contribute to the diversity of US campuses. And because today's workshop is about how to think strategically about college applications, I would suggest that you should also, for those of you who are not applying this year, but will apply next year, I think Romanian heritage programs would put you in a better position as applicants, as candidates. And of course, you will feel that you are in charge of your education as well as talking about your heritage when the question pops out from the college application system. Another thing that I'd like to add is the fact that we also run a Romanian Film Festival, and this year is the 8th edition. And as usual, we have films that address teenagers' issues, problems, and successes. So do check out that page as well. Without further ado, allow me to introduce Dr. Barbu, who earned a PhD in higher education administration from Florida State University, and who has worked for more than 12 years in college and university administration. She served as the Associate Vice-Provost for Institutional Research and Effectiveness at St. Thomas University, as Director of Research and Data Analytics at Miami Dade College, and as Director of Academic Programs at the State University System of Florida Board of Governors. So Diana, you have the mic. After her presentation, we'll have a Q&A. So please put down your questions for Diana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Before we start, I just wanted to say thank you to Ileana and Otilia. They have been such wonderful hosts and such wonderful collaborators. I just feel lucky to have a chance to work with them. So thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about today. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through the presentation, and I'm just going to make this smaller. Okay, so can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So basically today we're talking about college admissions, and the main goal of today's workshop is to actually show you how to be able to sleep at night, in essence, not stress about the college admission process and not stress about everything that's involved in it. I'm going to walk you through the entire process, starting from selection all the way to application. And because my argument is that if you know what's coming, then you kind of gain control over the process. And if you gain control over the process, you tend to stress less. If you feel like, where do I even start? You're in the right place. It's very common for everybody to kind of feel like, oh my God, now I have to do another thing. And besides everything else that you're doing every day, right? So kids to school, career, and everything else. So without further ado, let's just jump right there. So before we kind of go into the nitty-gritty parts of the presentation, let's kind of understand what's the landscape. So basically, what kind of options do we have for basically sending our kids to college in United States. So basically the higher education system in America, it kind of comprised of three main set of institutions, right? So we have community colleges. Community colleges tend to have programs that are more workforce oriented. So basically these community colleges allow students to come in, take sometimes a few months of courses, and then go into the workforce, right? So get a job through a certificate or certification or different things like that. Another thing that community colleges do, they have shorter programs, like 2-year programs. And this is one of the main kind of goals of community colleges, preparing students for the workforce, as well as kind of preparing students for the transition into universities. One of the programs that community colleges has is the Associate of Arts. The Associate of Arts is going to be very relevant for our conversation today. The Associate of Arts prepares students to transfer to universities later on. Another defining feature of community colleges is the fact that they have open admission. Open admission means that everybody who applies gets in. So basically, if you apply to a community college, you can basically start classes immediately afterwards, whenever they start classes. So community colleges are not selective. The vast majority of community colleges are state funded, which basically makes them cheaper. In essence, tuition at community colleges tends to be lower than in other settings, in universities or liberal arts colleges. There are some community colleges or state colleges that are private, but there's very few of them. So the vast majority of community colleges are going to be cheaper because they are funded by the state. The second set of kind of players in the higher education background are universities. Now, universities are very similar to the Romanian perspective of universities, right? So basically you apply, you go take an exam. Here you don't take an exam. But basically, one of the features of universities is that they are selective. So basically, universities pick and choose whoever they want to accept. They tend to be slightly more expensive than community colleges. Universities can be both private and public, right? So public universities tend to be cheaper because sometimes they get funding from the state. Hence, that makes them cheaper. And private universities get funding from the students. So basically, that keeps them at a high price. What universities do versus we're going to go into liberal arts colleges, the main mission of universities is to actually prepare students for a 4-year program, right? So the bachelor's programs are going to be found at universities. This is their mission. The master's programs and the PhD programs, the doctoral programs are more likely to be found at universities. So these are just like two things that you need to keep in mind. And universities also, similar with Romania, right, have living on campus dorms and options and everything else that goes with it. The third set of kind of players in the higher education context, it's the liberal arts colleges in America. Liberal arts colleges, as opposed to universities, tend to focus only on bachelor's programs, right? So basically, if you want to pursue only a bachelor's program, and if you want to, they tend to be more focused and have less diversity in terms of the programs that they offer. At the university, you may find programs such as engineering, nursing, health, business, whatever. Liberal arts colleges tend to be a little bit more focused and offer just like a more limited set of programs that are available. Liberal arts colleges, similar with universities, are selective. So basically, they pick and choose their students and basically who gets in and who doesn't. And liberal arts colleges can be public, and then they can be private as well. And then the pricing structure goes the same way as it with private, public and private universities. So before we move any further, let's kind of agree on two terms. So when I say you, I refer to you and your team, but just in the interest of time, you is going to mean both of you, like you and your teenager kind of prepping to go through the process. And then the second term that we're going to use going forward is going to be colleges, but we're only going to focus from the college's perspective on universities and liberal arts colleges because these are the selective ones. These are the ones that were talking for the majority of the presentation. Then we're going to come to community colleges a little bit at the end. So college means universities and liberal arts colleges, and you means you as a parent and your team. So now let's kind of see what's important for admission officers, right? So now we're kind of looking towards starting the admission process or even the college selection process. And let's say that your teen, it's like a 10th grader or 11th grader or even senior. It's not too late to actually prep for the application process right now and kind of start the selection process and everything else that goes with it. So on a regular basis, this association, which is called the National Association of College Admission Counselors, conducts surveys. And basically, they survey the vast majority of admission officers across the nation, and they ask them, when you made decisions over admitting students, what kind of features stood out for you? And basically, what I want you to look at is the fact that grades in all courses, which is in essence the GPA, grades in college prep courses, which is AP and IB and all that, and strength of the curriculum were the top 3 most important things that college admission officers focused on. There's a feedback. Somebody, I think, has their mic on. You'll see that the focus on test scores has been over time decreasing. And unfortunately, the data that you're seeing right now is the most recent data that's available. Like, unfortunately, the patient didn't do a survey recently. So basically, we're looking at data that's used and was kind of collected as of fall 2018. Now with COVID and everything else that COVID kind of brought, colleges moved even further from test scores. But because they moved further from test scores, they placed more influence on the first 3 categories, right? So on the GPA, on grades in AP and IB and so on and so forth. Now, the other thing that I want you to know as you're looking at this is capacity, right? So in public institutions, universities, right, or liberal arts colleges, public institutions tend to get applicants in the tens of thousands of students, right? So, and there's only like so many people that the admission office can process, right? So because of that, public universities that get massive amounts of applicants tend to focus more on the quantitative side of it, on the grades, on the strength of the curriculum, and sometimes test scores if the university is optional or required for testing. Private universities, on the other hand, don't tend to get this many applicants. Because of that, they have more leeway in terms of looking at other things than grades and basically doing more of a holistic perspective review. So for private universities, while they're going to focus on grades and everything else, they're also going to focus on the essay, on the interview, on the letters of recommendation and all that, just to kind of be able to make sense of the incoming class. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're kind of going through the process. And now I'm going to walk you through the process of how to build a balanced college list. And eventually we're going to end up with about 8 to 10 colleges or universities that you may want to consider applying to. So this step is valuable for 10th graders, 11th graders, and seniors. Like I said, it's not too late. If you're a senior, it's not too late to actually look at this. And if you're a 10th grader, it's not too early to start looking at this. If you're a junior, this is the perfect time for you to actually start looking at this. So what we're going to do first, I'm going to walk you through a couple of data sources, and I'll show you exactly how to go through this process so that you can benefit most about it. So one of the things that you should keep in mind as we're going through the process is keep an open mind. Look what's out there and kind of be flexible in terms of what's possible and what's not possible. Because at this particular point in time, we are basically just developing a starter list, which is going to be extensive. And then eventually we're going to narrow it down. We're going to balance it and narrow it down. And research is going to help you identify which college you would like to apply to. So one of the data sources that we're going to use today is the College Navigator. College Navigator, let me move this a little bit. College Navigator is, and the way I get to it all the time is I just Google it, College Navigator, and then the first hit is the one that I need. So College Navigator is basically this data aggregator maintained by the federal government, which basically every university and college in the country is feeding data on an annual basis. So basically, this is an extremely reliable kind of data source that I really like, and I used to use it in my work, and I really believe that it has a lot of value right now for everybody kind of looking towards building a starter list of colleges. So the way you can use the College Navigator, there's more ways than one to use the College Navigator, but for the starter list, we're gonna do it a certain way. So if you'd like, you can basically search by potential colleges, by state, right? Or you can search by zip code. I really like the zip code search, so I'm gonna do this. And I was looking up zip codes as I'm in Florida, or in Washington and in Seattle, and basically I found this zip code, so I'm gonna stick with it. And since we're looking at colleges like universities and LACs, right, the liberal arts colleges, and since we're looking at 4-year programs, I'm gonna check the bachelor's here and advanced. Advanced basically refers to master's and above. We're gonna look at public and private, and since associates and 2-year programs are the mission of community colleges, we're not gonna check those. Now, there's one thing that I want you to kind of look through here. So if you happen to know the kind of major that you would like to study in college, College Navigator lets you pick that major here. If you don't happen to know what you want to study, and if you're undecided, know that it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely okay. One of the main goals of college is to actually expose you to various things, to various fields, to various opportunities out there. So if you don't really know what you want to major in, don't panic. It's very, very normal not to know. And in essence, about 20% of the students that go to college every year don't really know what they want to major in. So let's just, in order to narrow down our list, I'm just gonna kind of put a couple of majors here just because it's gonna give us a more manageable number of institutions to actually work with. So I'm gonna put computer science because my background is in computer science. I'm gonna put another program, sociology. And then sociology, I'm just gonna go with general. And I want you to look at this option. So basically, if you're like knowing exactly, I want to study computer science or maybe sociology in college, and I want to find a college that has both of them, then by checking this, it's going to show you only the colleges that offer both of them. I'm not going to check it at this time because we need options. So basically now the response list that I'm going to get out of this is going to include either the computer science program, either the sociology program. So I'm going to close out of here. And then there's more features for kind of conducting your search here. The campus setting and the housing, if this is important for you, kind of choose whatever you think is important. I would stay away from this at this particular point in time. And then if your teen is interested in playing sports or kind of finding a college with various sports, this is the way to actually check whether or not the college has it. So if you're gonna basically check women swimming or something, basically the list of colleges is gonna get narrowed down to only the colleges that offer women swimming and so on and so forth. So at this particular point in time, I don't wanna check anything else. And now I'm gonna get the results. So basically what you'll see is that I got 29 universities in my list, and each one of them offers either computer science, either sociology as a program, right? So two things here. First thing, you may want to repeat this step as many times as necessary until you actually find your colleges. So this step, you can do it over and over again until you kind of find your colleges. And then what you could do, and I like to do as well, is export the results. So I'm going to export the results in Excel format, and I'm going to show you how the list looks like in terms of what comes out of it, what comes out of College Navigator. So, yes. So this is, let's move away from here, enable editing. So this is the data that College Navigator provides to everyone based on the selection, and these are all the 29 institutions. You're going to see that we have these institutions, their address, the distance from the zip code, the website, the type of programs, and the type of awards. These are the diplomas offered. You're going to see the campus setting, campus housing, the size, number of undergrad students, so bachelor students pursue, number of students pursuing a bachelor's degree, graduation rate. We're going to talk a little bit about this, transfer out rates, cohort. Anyway, so basically, and net price. We're going to touch on net price a little bit later on. So basically, this is, let's say that we like this list and we want to kind of narrow down this list. So we're going to call this our starter list. The next step, so now we completed step one. The next step is actually balancing the list. In balancing the list, we want to find how we rank in relation to the students that attended, that entered the college the previous year. And that data is available. So one of the main things that we're going to look for is the GPA, and the other one is the test scores. Okay, so there is this thing, let's see, there is, besides the federal data collection, there's other data collections. And one of them is the common data set. So the abbreviation of CDS comes from common data set. The common data set is a set of data that is provided every year by universities to various entities. This common data set, it's also used for rankings and for making sure that information is available to the public. Now, the important thing to know about the CDS is that while the CDS may be there, some universities don't make their CDS public, their common data set public. Some universities don't fill it out every year, and some universities don't put it on their website. So if you cannot find the common data set, it's going to be a little bit more complicated to actually find the data. So I just took University of Washington Seattle campus common data set, and I just Googled it. And basically what I'm going to show you now is how to look. So see, University of Washington basically provided their CDS for all 3 campuses. And we're going to take the most recent year, and we're going to download it. And I want you to go into it, and without getting intimidated, please don't run away now. The common data set includes very, very important data, and it's going to be very important for us as we're building our college list and narrowing it down. So you see all these sections, there's lots of information in them. What we're going to focus now is the C, the section C. Section C basically deals with first year freshman admissions. And here is the place where we're going to look for the GPA. Element C12 has the average GPA of the students that entered college in the fall of 2020. So you'll see that the average GPA for those students, it's 3.79. And here you'll see kind of sort of the distribution of those GPAs, right? So basically the vast majority of the students kind of had their GPA in between 375 and 399. Okay, So now, keeping this in mind, what we are doing, we are going back to our college list and start to add up some information to it. So I'm just gonna hide these a little bit. Let's hide. And add for Seattle campus, I'm gonna add the 3.79 GPA. Okay, so, and let's just say that my GPA is 3.5 for the sake of the argument. What's important here is going to the next slide. This is where we do the determination of whether or not the college would be likely for us to get in. Now, it's important to know that there's more things that admission officers are looking at other than GPA. They're looking at various things and holistic review, and then many institutions admit students based on their goals. But at this particular point in time, just to kind of give us an idea about where we stack versus the average and kind of narrow down our list, because my GPA say it's a 3.5 and the average GPA for the school is 3.79. So basically this college for me would be a reach. So I'm gonna go to my college navigator and I'm just gonna make a determination. I'm gonna call this college reach. So let's say, now at this particular point in time, it would be easy for you to assume that, oh my God, all the colleges are gonna have very high GPAs. That is not the case. So each college has their own kind of set of GPAs and their own averages, and don't feel discouraged if you feel that the GPA is somewhere and you are somewhere, and so just kind of cast a wide net, keep an open mind, and kind of make determinations on colleges based on the GPA and the test scores to begin with. So let's say that Seattle Pacific University has a 3.0 GPA. So if we were to kind of balance the list and kind of figure out where we are, for me, right, for a 3.5 GPA, I would be in a safety school. So basically, my GPA is way higher than the 3.0 average GPA. So basically, from the GPA perspective, I have a high chance of getting admitted. So I'm just gonna put this here, 3.0, and then this is like a safety. So this is how you basically go through each one of your colleges. It's a lot of research and it's a little bit tedious. Each one of your colleges, and that's how you balance the list. It's important to balance the list because if you have it balanced, then you're more likely to actually be successful through the college application process. All right, so once you do that, the next thing that you could do is look up the test scores. So we're back in common data set. The test scores are in C9. Let's see. So test scores are in C9. You'll see that this is the 25th percentile and the 75th percentile. So again, you basically plug these in, think of what your test scores are, and kind of determine or make a determination on the college as in whether or not it's a dream or a safety or a reach. So just kind of use this data as much as you can. All right, so basically by the end, once you're done with this step, you basically just kind of figured out which colleges are what for you. So safety means that your chances of getting in are very high because your stats kind of match or are above the students that were accepted last year. The rich schools are the schools where you have pretty high chances of getting in. And then the dream schools are the schools where it's a possibility, but the stats tend to be lower than the stats of the students that were accepted in the past. So let's talk a little bit about the notion of fit. And we're not going to go into the financial fit today, the April 2nd webinar. So we have another webinar scheduled to talk about the finances and everything else that goes with finances. It's going to deal with the financial fit. And let's focus a little bit on the academic fit. So academic fit is very important from the perspective of you want to find the college that has the program that you're interested in, right? That has the major that you're interested in, that has the facilities, that has the faculty that you're kind of interested in studying with and everything else. But also from the academic perspective, I want to kind of draw your attention to another thing. And basically this thing is the graduation rate. So basically what we're going to do, we're back to College Navigator. This is our list. And I'm going to go to the Seattle campus. And see, this is another way to actually look at data. And here you're going to see massive amounts of data. Among other things, you're going to see the admissions data. This is another way to actually look at the admissions data from separate from the common data set, but the data should be more or less the same. And then what we're going to do, we're going to talk about graduation rates. Before I kind of show you what's up with them, let me explain that a little bit. So graduation rates are basically tracking the students that started the college and graduated or basically completed their bachelor's degree at the same college 4 or 6 years later. What's important to know about graduation rates is that not all the students are included in graduation rates. And yes, graduation rates are still like a very controversial measure. But the thing is, graduation rates are going to be relevant for you if your student, your senior, plans to enroll in college immediately after high school graduation in the fall term full-time. This is what we call traditional students, right? So basically you graduated high school, you go to college and you plan to enroll in the fall full-time, then graduation rates are going to be relevant for you because your student is going to be counted into one of these graduation rates. If your student is basically thinking, oh, I'm just going to go to a community college, or I'm just going to start in the spring rather than starting in the fall, which is possible, then graduation rates may not be relevant for you because this is how they are tracked. Another important thing to know about graduation rates, and you probably remember that we saw the graduation rate in the College Navigator, the standard for tracking graduation rates and displaying this information is set at 6 years. So what you see in College Navigator, it's the 6-year graduation rate. So basically it's the percent of students that started at a particular point in time and graduated 6 years later, not 4 years later. Now, it's very important for us, it might be very important for us to actually know the 4-year graduation rate. And this is just looking up data again. And this is an important kind of exercise to kind of do for yourself as you're kind of looking through colleges and kind of sorting through them. So you see that the graduation rates that we have here are basically for the students that began in the fall of 2014. So basically 67% of the students that began in fall of 2014 graduated in 4 years. And then about 20% more kind of sort of graduated 2 years later. So use this metric in your process of research and narrowing down the list because it might help you a lot. Oh, and also I want to qualify this by saying by kind of providing you with the national averages, right? So at the national average, the percent of students that graduate in 4 years is 40%. And then the percent of students that graduate in 6 years, it's 60%. So that's that. In terms of personal fit, so now you're basically narrowing down your list of colleges, and at some point you're going to kind of sort of contemplate going to the campus to kind of meet, see how you feel about it and meet the people and kind of orient yourself and see how that's the feeling that you have on campus. So from the personal fit perspective, the college visit is one of the best ways to actually assess the fit. There are students who say, oh my God, I knew that I wanted to go to this particular college the moment I set foot on campus because I had this feeling. So I want you to kind of, when you're doing the campus visits, keep an open mind and kind of listen to yourself and kind of feel what comes, and make your college decisions or basically narrow down your list of colleges based on that because it's very important. You're going to spend about 4 to 6 years on that campus. So it's important to kind of feel comfortable there. So that's the concept of fit for me was a little bit like fuzzy for a while until I kind of talked with admissions officers. And then I kind of manage to separate it into three kind of categories and be like, okay, this is what this means: academic fit, personal fit, and then financial fit. So the concept of fit is going to be very important in narrowing down your list. So now let's say, as I kind of said before, let's say you narrowed down your list. Your goal is to actually have about 2 to 3 safety colleges, about 2 to 3 rich colleges in your list, and about 2 to 3 kind of sort of dream colleges in your list. So basically now you have it all balanced out. You know exactly what colleges you want to apply to, but you don't really know what's next. So this is what's next. This is exactly what's happening right now. So right now we are in the middle of the application process. And then what I want you to know is that different colleges have different admission plans, right? So basically they have specifications in terms of how they want you to submit the application, when they want you to submit the application, and then I'm going to explain what goes behind this. So one of the things that is important to know is early decision. Early decision, it's a very important application admission plan because early decision basically it's binding. This is one of the plans where basically you are committing to attending a university or college at the time of application, independent of whether or not the university or college takes you in. So that's what binding means. The other feature of the early decision is the fact that you're only going to get one financial aid letter or only one financial aid award, because through early decision, you can only apply to one college. The benefit of early decision is that typically the acceptance rate is higher through early decision rather than the rest of the plans. But just be very careful. Early decision has a lot of elements like binding, like one financial aid letter, and the ability to only apply to one college, that if you're kind of casting a broader net and you really want to see how much money will different colleges offer you to attend those particular colleges, then you may not want to look into early decision. Early action is basically you apply earlier and you learn about the decision to kind of whether or not you got accepted earlier than the rest of the students. Early action, it's nice in that it's not restrictive, so you can apply to as many universities as you'd like. And then you have time to commit. So basically for early action, you're sending in the application, but you're still saying, well, if you take me in, I'm still going to wait for other universities to give me financial aid letters, and I'm going to commit at some point, which is typically the commitment date, it's May 1st. I'm going to commit at some point before May 1st, but whenever I like. So basically, and if I don't want to commit to this early action university, I don't have to. Priority admission is basically, some universities do this because they're like, if you submit an application earlier, and if we really like you, we're probably going to give you more merit aid, more money. Regular decision, the regular decision typically has the deadline for the application on January 1st or at the beginning of January. This is kind of sort of your plain vanilla. If you didn't apply to anything, then apply to early decision because it's a good way to go forward. The thing with early decision is that you apply in January, more or less, and then you get the response in March or April. And then there's rolling admission. I really like the rolling admission plan. Rolling admission basically provides you a lot of flexibility. With rolling admission, you can apply to a college as soon as the application period opens up, which is August 1st. So as soon as the August 1st comes around of high school senior year, you can apply to a university and be considered for admission. And then for rolling admission, it's very much of a first come, first serve. So you send in the application, the admission officer gets it, they look at it and they're like, oh, okay, sure, we're gonna take you in and here's your financial aid packet. So, and you still have time to actually decide if you wanna attend or not. But the earlier you apply with rolling admission, the better it's gonna be. The other nice feature about rolling admission is that just in case you kind of used all the other plans and you didn't find a college that's a good financial fit or, you know, personal fit or different things like that, you can still use rolling admission to apply in April or sometimes in May, if the university has spots available for students. So now that you know what kind of, oh, and the other thing is you have to kind of look at the university's website to actually find out what kind of admission plan they are employing and their deadlines. That's very, very important. So now that you know what kind of options are there, let's kind of talk a little bit about the application. So if your son or daughter is a senior, this is what's going to happen next for you. You're going to prepare the materials, and you're going to kind of submit them as soon as possible or by the college's deadlines. One thing that I want you to keep in mind, if you don't remember anything else from this presentation, but this, give yourself about 2 months to kind of finish the college application. So start about as soon as possible, get familiar with the essay prompts, with the requirements, with the optional fields. Many, like Ilana mentioned in the previous session, many institutions tailor their applications to their institution, and they ask for optional supplemental essays or various things. Those optionals are not really optional. Fill out as much information as they require, even though it says optional. So now there's a couple of platforms to actually submit an application. Common App is the most common platform to submit an application. The great thing about Common App is that you enter your information once and then it gets sent to all the universities around that you really want to send information to. And there's about 900 universities part of Common App right now. Coalition App is kind of similar with Common App, but has fewer institutions. And then if you cannot find anything else, the college website is going to work for you to submit an application. And then some states have state portals. That's the case for Texas and California. The financial aid piece. The financial aid piece, it's important to know because if you don't submit the financial aid documentation, you will not get considered for merit, for need, for nothing. Basically, universities assume, so basically the financial aid application is not required, but if you don't submit it, universities are going to assume that you have all the money that you need to actually pay for it, so they're not going to consider you for various grants, awards, scholarships, whatever else. So FEFSA, it's the federal financial aid application. FEFSA is for US residents and US citizens. If you happen to be neither one of those, the Washington state has the Washington application for financial student aid. So fill out that one. CSS profile, it's one of the applications, the financial aid applications that it's used by only 400 colleges. And it asks for a lot of information, and the university's website is going to tell you exactly what kind of applications they want you to fill out. I put here the 2 state grants that are available in the state of Washington. When you get a chance and if you need them and need details about it, know to look for these. The Seattle Promise, it's only for community colleges, and both of these are need-based. And a promise program means that after all the other funds have been provided, the state is going to cover the gap in between what you have left off and the total cost of attendance. So just look at them when you get a chance. I wanted to actually talk a little bit about the transfer option, and I think this is the last slide that we're really focusing on intensely. So one of the things that I want you to know about the transfer option is that it's a very viable option. There's more ways to transfer, but in general, the transfer option kind of looks at students starting at community colleges, hopefully completing the Associate of Arts, and then transferring into the university. When the transfer option works and when there's a good articulation, basically connection in between the community colleges and universities, then it works seamlessly and it works perfectly. I wrote 2 blog posts on transfer. When you get a chance, go read them. But also what I want to tell you is from the perspective of at the national level, right? So from the research perspective, there's a mountain of research done on transfer and the issues that are associated with transfer. What I want you to know is that typically 80% of the students that go to community college want to transfer to a university. Out of those 80%, only about 30% do it. And then out of those 30%, only about half of them actually graduate with a college degree, bachelor's degree, 6 years later. Now, this is different, right? So basically, in essence, out of all the students that start at community college, only about 14% graduate 6 years later versus the students that start at the university and 60% of them graduate 6 years later. So if you want to do this option and if you want to pursue it, it's true that community colleges are going to be cheaper. Then just prepare for it. And as soon as you get into the community college, get in touch with the university that you want to transfer to, because it's very important to actually learn all the requirements that the university has for the transfer students from various institutions. So we might talk about this more in the Q&A. These are the admission decisions, but since we're out of time, I'm not going to touch on them because we can touch on them later on. But basically, one thing that I want you to know is that not accepted in this country does not mean rejected. So there's all these kind of types of admission decisions. We're going to talk about them in April. And then this is the last slide, and we're going to go into Q&A now. If you need to basically figure out your financial fit and figure out how to make sense of the financial aid offer and how to kind of negotiate for more aid, because yes, you can ask colleges for more aid. Get this book. This is, I published this in February of this year, and it focuses on kind of helping you understand the financial aid process, what's involved, what each and every element means, how to compare colleges on out-of-pocket costs, and then understand what happens to aid after the first year, because that's very important. Aid is only awarded on a yearly basis. What we talked about today is what's going to be in the Ultimate College Admissions Guide. I'm working on this book, and I'm working on getting it out on the market as soon as possible. And then for more resources, go to my blog. What I want you to kind of look for here in the blog, I put together a college master list. This college master list basically breaks down month by month activities. So what you need to do in the month of October to ensure that you're going to go to college next fall, or in the month of November or January or May, whatever. So basically, I just kind of put together this so that you and whoever can print it, put it on their wall, and kind of make sense of everything and know what's coming and know what they need to do. And then here, I would love to keep in touch. So please kind of contact me whichever way you think would work best for you. I always love talking about this stuff. And obviously, probably by now you realize that I'm super, super passionate about this. But I'm going to stop here, and we're going to transition into Q&A now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Diana, for this comprehensive presentation. I will make only 2 comments because you raised some very interesting issues, and I'd like to clarify 2 of them. First, when you talked about graduation rates and why they are important in the process of applying to colleges, I would like to underline the fact that if a college or a university has higher graduation rates, that means they are really committed in supporting their students, and they offer a lot of tools for success. For example, University of Washington, where I know more about, is offering writing centers, tutoring for math, for physics. And so there are tools that guarantee your students' success. And my second comment is because you said, go visit the colleges that accepted you. There are several articles published by psychologists who studied the rate of success of students that's related to their level of happiness. To be happy on a campus means that your academic success is more likely to thrive on that campus. So don't ignore this aspect because it's a psychologically proven actually a connection between the level of feeling happy, feeling understood, feeling welcome on a campus and your success. And again, I will go to chat, and we have very interesting questions. The first one is how the GPA, or if the GPA is calculated only for high school courses, or in the GPA, they take into account, let's say you have some university classes you attended or community college classes that you attended.
Yeah, so this is an excellent question. So the short answer is that it depends by college. So basically each college looks at the transcript and decides, we're gonna look at this GPA or that GPA, we're gonna weigh the grades and everything else. Let me just talk a little bit about weighted and unweighted GPA. So weighted GPA means, let's start with unweighted. So unweighted GPA means that if I take a physical education class and I get an A in it, and if I take AP calculus and I get an A in it, my number digit grade for each one of these classes is going to be a 4.0 because each one of them have equal weight. So my GPA for these two classes is going to be 4.0. Now, weighing the GPA means that some courses have more weight than others. So my physical education class, where I got an A and a 4, is going to be, right, a grade of 4. And then for the AP calculus or dual enrollment calculus, whatever it is, then the admission officers basically give a grade of 5 to an A. So basically now in the eyes of that admission officer, I have a GPA of 4.5. And this is where things kind of start to look weird, right? Because everybody's like, how can somebody have a GPA of 4.7 or whatever else? This is how they do it. But in terms of how colleges make the decision on which courses matter, which classes kind of are gonna get weighed one way or another, it's a unique decision. And one of the things that you're going to need when you kind of prepare to submit the application, you're going to need to submit the transcript. And one of the important things of the transcript is that basically that's going to give the admission officer a clear perspective as to, did you challenge yourself through high school? Did you take hard classes? And then they're going to assign different kind of weight, right? To various classes, and then they're going to recalculate your GPA. So they're going to take your GPA that you're providing them into a certain format or whatever, but they're also going to look closely at your transcript.
Thank you, Diana. And I also thought of another question, because you talked about the good articulation between community colleges and universities. And I was wondering if, for example, can students transfer from a community college to their dream university? Is that reasonable to think about that? Or if the process, the transfer process, is easier when both the community college and the university are in the same state?
So the process, it's easier when both institutions are public. So when both the community college and the university are public and in the same state. This is one reason why. The reason why, let's start this way. The reason why this is the case is that typically higher education systems tend to be governed in a centralized way, and basically whoever governs these systems make sure that the two systems, sometimes there's the community college system and then the university system, kind of talk to each other. And sometimes there's all the universities and community colleges in the same system. And then there's the seamless articulation is taken care of. Now, when we talk about transferring courses or transferring a degree from, like an associate degree, from a community college to a private institution, now things can be a little bit more dicey. fundamentally, in the big picture of things, there's nothing that's going to guarantee admission. The great thing about community college transfer to a university is that you're basically deferring the admission decision to later on, right, when you're kind of going to the university. But you're going to have to get admitted at some point by the university. And if you're trying to transfer credits into a private university, the private university is going to be like, I can pick and choose whichever courses I want to accept. And some universities are going to accept them all. Some universities are going to only accept a few. And then the other thing is, and it's the same thing about transferring courses or a degree, the associate degree, across state lines, because in America, higher education, it's highly state specific. So basically each college kind of decides, do I want to take you in, and how many credits do I want to take in from you? And I'm kind of talking about that a little bit more in the two blog posts about transfer. But it's important to know also that think of selectivity, right? So selectivity is how many students out of the ones that applied got accepted. And you can see that information through Common Data Set or through College Navigator. Typically, the acceptance rates for first-time students, basically freshmen going, high school graduates going straight into the university, tends to be higher than from students coming from community colleges, transfer students basically coming from community colleges and kind of going into the university. So section D of the Common Data Set has that information. So spend some time with the Common Data Set. You'll see that, for example, for UW at Seattle, the acceptance rate is higher for first-time students. And then the acceptance rate for transfer students tends to be a little bit lower, not much lower, but just a little bit lower. So always kind of prep ahead of time for the transfer process.
Excellent. Thank you very much. There was another question related to the GPA and transferring courses from university to community college and vice versa. So for example, if you are already enrolled in a university, but you decide to take some community college classes, would those credits be transferable into the transcript of your university?
Yes, the answer is yes, and it depends. So the universities make the rules, right? So in the state of Florida, in particular, there is this thing which is called transient student. So basically, you're a student at the university, and then you want to take summer classes, say, for the sake of the argument, at the local community college. The best way to actually go about it is to actually talk with your academic advisor at the university to see whether or not these courses would transfer. Ideally, you would get in, again, the state of Florida, there's this form that's signed, and then basically the university commits in a way to actually take your credits. And sometimes the university is going to specify and it's going to say, oh, we're going to transfer these credits or accept these credits only if you have a certain GPA in the class or a certain grade. So the best way to go about it is on the front end, kind of talk with your advisor, counselor at the college, university that is, at the university, and then kind of pursue that further if the university says, yes, you can do that and here's how to do it.
Excellent. And there is another question about how much the SAT or ACTs weigh. So because I know that more and more universities are dropping the scores at this point.
Yeah, this is the $1 million question, right? So basically, in terms of SAT and ACT scores, we have now 3 models that we didn't really have before. So we have the universities that are actually requiring it, and the ones that are requiring it are looking at it very closely. There's universities that say, oh, if you submit it, we're going to look at it and we might or might not consider it, which is the test optional thing. And then there's the UC system, University of California system, which says, we're not even going to allow you to submit them, like not at all. The admission decision is test blind. So it depends. So if they are required, it's clear. But but basically, should you submit your test scores if you took them and you don't really know whether or not, and the college is optional? My professional advice to that is that you should look at the 25th and 75th percentile like the way that I showed you, either in the common data set, either in College Navigator in the admission section, and see how close you are to the 75th percentile, like either a bit lower, higher, obviously. And based on that, kind of make your decision on sending them in. So if they're going to make you look good, right, then definitely, but just kind of, you need to kind of make a decision, and the data that's in College Navigator and common data set is going to actually help you make that decision.
Yeah, I would like to add to this point the fact that as an admission officer, you like to see progress, and please do not hesitate to take SAT or SAT twice or 3 times, because
Yes.
that shows that you persevere and you wanted to do better. So whenever I see on a college application a student, a candidate, whose results I received twice, or I see the scores, I like that. And it's not only me, it's how we are trained and go through this every year. So please consider the fact, if you are not satisfied with your first SAT score, enroll and do another one. And we have also another question about how do office admission officers see these universities admissions in 8 or 10 years?
That's a very good question. I mean, I think at this particular point in time, your guess is as good as mine. So it seems that, so EUC system, right, the University of California system, basically prior to the COVID pandemic, they really wanted to transition out of test scores into a more kind of personalized admission model. Now, does that look like Romania? Will that be like each institution is going to have their own admission exam? If it does, then many things are going to change, right? Because you need to kind of do that admission exam, because we're moving away from the standardized, right, SAT and ACT. But your guess is as good as mine. I think colleges and universities are very flexible and are adapting to their environment very fast. And basically the fact that 75% of the colleges right now in America are test optional, kind of, it's a testament to how fast everything can adapt. Because once the test centers were not available and open, they just basically dropped some or made the test optional. So I think it really depends. I'm not sure, and I don't, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't want to see this go into each university their own exam type of thing, like what we're used to from Romania, but don't know.
And there is a follow-up question to this point. If we can infer that a university that drops the testing standards might have a lower educational outcome.
Not necessarily. Yeah, this is a very good point. So, and this is one of the arguments that I'm making in the book, because there's an argument out there that says, oh, the higher the test scores, or basically the abilities of the incoming students are, the higher the graduation rate is going to be for the institution, right? Because this is in a way to kind of connect the two of them. So I ran the data because I'm a researcher, right? And I ran the data, and it's not the case. Like, there's plenty of universities that have high test scores with, say, below average graduation rates, or a lot of institutions that have not so high test scores with very good or above average graduation rates. So it's easy to kind of fall into this trap, but the data shows otherwise.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And we have time for one more question if you want to put in chat. And if not, the last question I might have for you, Diana, and probably some other might think of it, is what's the difference between becoming an in-state university student versus an out-of-state university student?
Yes, the difference is sometimes several $1,000s and sometimes a couple of tens of thousands of dollars. So basically, an in-state student is the student that has been living and going to college, to high school in the specific state, and then kind of wants to pursue college in the same state. So basically, if I were to go to college again in Florida, I would be an in-state student because I have been here for about 14 years now. But if I want to go to college still in Florida, right? And if I want to go to college to Washington, then I'm going to be an out-of-state student for any university in Washington. And now things get tricky, right? So there's two sides of things. The first side of things is that University of Washington is going to say, oh yeah, sure, we're going to take you in based on my credentials, whatever. And here's the bill, right? So it's very, very likely that it's going to be significantly higher than the bill that I would get by going in state. The other thing that can happen, and this can happen, and it's important to know, the other thing that can happen is like University of Washington looking at my application and being like, oh, we really, really want you to be here. So we're going to give you extra merit aid or extra aid, whatever, extra grants and scholarships so that you can actually come here because we really want you to be here. So there is a possibility that my tuition in Washington would be not as little as in Florida, but decent. And that's why this is one of the things, and we kind of touch base prior to this with Ilana. This is why we didn't touch on costs at this particular point in time, because you don't really know how much college is going to cost you until the college admits you and sends you the financial aid letter. And until then, you don't really know how much it's going to cost you. Yes, you can look at the cost and you can look at the net price on College Navigator, right? In one of those sections, besides graduation rates, you're going to find the tuition and total expenses as well as the net price. And it's very informative for your process. But until the college accepts you and sends you the financial aid letter, you don't really know how much you're going to pay for the first year of college.
And with this, I will let you know, all of you, and thank you for participating today. We'll have another workshop with Diana Barbu in April after you receive the admission letters. So then it will be focused on how to choose these universities. And of course, you'll have more concrete, more specific questions for Diana at that point. But keep in mind, and please do check our website and our education page for updates, because we will have already scheduled the April workshop in this respect. So thank you, Diana. Again.
Thank you so much for having me. And also, if you kind of happen to have other questions, just use the email address, collegetalk.us@gmail. With any question, I'm very happy to address anything, and we can also chat if you're interested in that. So thank you.
Thank you for your generous, for being so generous with us and with our guests. And we look forward to having you again. So thank you, everybody. We'll stop the recording now. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.